Learning can be stressful, but at the end of the day, the asset is yours. Nobody will ever take it away from you. You can have money, put it down. Somebody can steal. You can have dresses and clothes, and it will all age and be gone. But knowledge is yours, and it can never, ever be taken from you. Even if they do a brain surgery for you, it can never be taken. Well, yeah, it can be stressful. So it's encouragement. Please encourage your peers. I'm not sure we've had full attendance since we started this program. Kudus, maybe you just take a look at what is happening, and maybe we just have a brief call after, just to know what it means to make this work. So yes, like Kudus said, we're going into our second module. The first two lectures were really introduction here. Going forward, we'll be dealing with specific issues that are of paramount importance for your club. So this next three series is on grant. You'll have some series on manuscript writing, others on leadership and all that. So I'm going to start by kind of challenging you guys that grants making is the same as manuscript writing for undergraduates. It's nobody's island. And here I'm going to share 4 examples of people who are undergraduate medical and dental students who have won grants. Faithfulness. These are only 4 people that I'm aware of in Ife, and there are lots more. I'm sure there are people in Ibadan, and I'm sure there are other people around. Faithfulness is a medical student. She won this grant when she was in Part 5. She's now moved on to Part 6, and she's also supporting, she's also implementing the grant well in Part 6. She got a $4,000 grant. For the RSTHM grants, you can write up to $5,000 or £5,000. But she wrote a grant of 4,000 about looking at ethics training for undergraduate students. So she's implementing that. That's the grant number. And take 2 things from faithfulness. 1, she's a female. 2, it's an international grant. The same grant, it's for early career researchers. So she didn't say, I'm a student. I am not qualified for early career researchers. She understood that once she's in that academia, she should be supporting the academia process. The academia process also includes getting grants, and she applied. One of the things Faithfulness would ever tell you was that this was her second attempt. So there was a first attempt she didn't do. She sharpened it up. She wrote it better and then submitted, and she got the second. She got it at the second attempt. Here is Ayodeji Arobo. Ayodeji Arobo is a dental student. Ayodeji Arobo got his grant as a Part 3 student. So he's not a clinical student, he's a Part 3 student. He not only got this grant to do his research on ecological study, looking at the environmental policies and the experience of early childhood babies, he also got a travel grant in the same meeting that enabled, because of its abstract he presented. So the travel grant was supposed to support him to go to America for the Acton Foundation. But, that was the time of all this Trump problem and Iran and all that. So he did his presentation online. But otherwise, he got the money. He had to refund the money out of transparency. Did his online presentation, but could not travel. So what is it that you're learning from Ayo? He's not a clinical student. He's an undergraduate student. He's already doing research. He wrote research enough to win him an award to get a travel grant. But in addition, he also has a grant that he would implement to do his research work. Hear my words, is a non-clinical student. This is Jeremiah Daniels, who has many grants. He has many grants. Jeremiah is currently in his final year, and he's been winning grants since his undergraduate days. I'm just showing one of his many grants here, where he founded the Ife Students group on neuroscience, and then got a grant from Simon Foundation, £2,000, to buy equipment so as to train on hands-on mechanism. So it's not all, the other two got research grants, they're implementing grants. I got a research grant in addition to a travel grant. But this is Jeremiah that is getting a travel grant. I know an equipment grant to make things work for the group he studied, he's leading himself. I'm trying to get his profile so I can read a little more about. Just give me a minute, it's distracting me. Jeremiah, so that I can read a little more about his many grants that he has. And they're all in foreign currency. He also has a $2,000 grant, which is a training grant. A training grant, that's not a research grant. It has a 100,000 naira travel grant for neurological science AGM here in Nigeria, 100,000 naira. Why am I emphasizing that? The grants are not only in dollars and euros, there are organizations here in Nigeria providing grants. It has a $500 travel grant for a sub-Saharan African meeting and another $500 travel grant for somewhere in Africa. So I'm bringing these examples to show you that there are multiple grant opportunities. Finally, my fourth grant recipient is Oluwapelumi Sholagbade. He has travel grants. You can see he has grants to go to Spain for workshop. He has travel fellowship to UK. Ask me where Sholagbade is. Sholagbade is a Part 3 medical student. It's not in this clinical years yet. It's a Part 3 medical student. He and Arobo are classmates. So why did I say that? You can see that iron sharpened iron. They are good friends. They are in their undergraduate and they're already doing well. So Sholagbade has grants for travels, grants for workshops, grants for research, grants for boot camps, grants. If you pull this together, there's some professors in the university that doesn't have. And this is not all. This is just what my slides can take. So why have I said all this, guys? Getting grants is not the business of professors. Getting grants is the business of anybody that has ideas they can sell. And what is a grant? It's free money for your research ideas. It's not free money to go and buy a car. It's free money for you to grow your ideas. I want to go for a workshop. I want to do the grant implementation. I have like a research club. I want to make it grow. You can find grants that might support the idea of your research growth. But importantly, you as a student should care about grants because it starts to build your CV. It starts to make your CV different. When people are looking at applications, what they look for is that they look for that CV that is different. It's that, Omoru, please put off your mind, put off your video. Omoru Destiny, please put off your video. I'm holding on. Please put off your video. Your video is distracting. Thank you. So you would know already that when there's a call for application anywhere, please put off your video, all of you. Please just put off your video, please. Olarinde, Miriam, Eniola, put off your video. Thank you. Please don't put on your video. Thank you. So whoever you are, you find out that when there's a call, when there's an opportunity, there are thousands and thousands. Dr. Kudus could share with you also, even in manuscript writing up, when we're looking for application of 20 people to do the manuscript up training for 24 weeks for undergraduate students, we have to select from many. So you must learn to start looking for those things that will make your CV exceptional. What is your CV? That you went to school and got distinction. There are many people that went to school and got distinction. But what is that exceptional thing in your CV that shows that, no, you can go out of your mile and survive? Those are those things like community service, you ran a research club, you got a grant for it. It's those little things that build your CVs. And in implementing this grants, you also build skills, writing skills, project management skills. And like I said, there are many funds. There are funds for equipment, funds for travel, funds for keeping biospecimens. It's just about your innovation. What is it? What is that new thing that will make a difference that anybody can fund in a way that in the future they would say they were part of this process? So there are common mates. Once again, it's not only professors that win grants, anybody, and I can just as I've shown you, these are just 4 students out of many. I'm not even saying 4 students out of my university. They're just 4 students from medical and dental school. There are others there, and it's just one medical and dental school. There are many undergraduates starting to get grants. It's just that they are learning how to do it right. So you don't need a full lab. It's just for you to have a good question. And for many of them, good mentorship, like the kind of program you have chosen to do, a research club. That is a mentorship ground that can enable your members get access to these grants. We'll be talking briefly about where these grants are. So you can, these are the myths, grants are only gotten abroad. You can see people get grants, TED Fund, NLC. You can see a number of them getting grants in Naira. Arabo got 250,000 Naira. I showed somebody that got 100,000 Naira. There are grants here in Nigeria that are accessible. So it's not only in dollars or pounds, you can get them. All right. So like I said, there are grants for students, there are seed grants, there are travel grants, there are equipment grants, there are material grants, there are innovation grants, there are grants that are accessible for the kind of things you're doing yourself. But there are rules of the game. Usually as a student, you'll be looking for small grants. You can see that there's none of those grants that was above $5,000. And it's a number of things. As a student, you'll be expected to only have small grant that you can manage within a small short period of time. Nobody's going to give you a grant that you will need you to manage it for 5 years. Nobody's going to give you a grant of $100,000 because of management systems and structures. Once you start getting grants of $50,000 or more, they will expect institutional support. There's no institution that will give support to a student because you are not their staff. They're not paying your salary. So there's no way that if anything goes wrong, they can assess the money. So nobody's going to give you those kind of grants that has high risk, So, but when you're writing grants, we'll be going to that you must follow the rules. But one of the big rules that also matters is the proportion you give to the grants. If you're doing small grants, 80% of that grant can go to your efforts like traveling, data collection, those kind of things. But if you're doing international grants, nobody's going to support a grant where 80% of the money of the grant is going to efforts. The maximum usually you should temper with in international grants, or I mean big grants when I'm saying international grants, is like 35% of personal effort. Anything more than that would raise eyebrow because they want you to spend a lot more money in doing the work you want to do to get results. And when people take grants, grant is not supposed to be the thing that is your salary. It's supposed to be supplementary income. It is assumed that you have income somewhere because people have grants. They have multiple grants, but people can have 20 grants. So people can have 10 grants. So your income comes from small grants. From those grants, one grant cannot pay all your salary, but you can do effort if it's a small thing. So when you're doing small grants, you can't be saying salary because you are not a staff. They don't understand that you're a student, So those are the kind of things you want to think about. So when we're talking about grants, you can see, I think I told you the first one that it was a second attempt. Many people will have to write multiple grants and multiple applications to get a grant. It's not, I wrote it once and that's the end. No. And it's the same in places like the high income countries, definitely like US. There's some people that their job, that's the money they get. They are in an institution, like they'll say, I'm in Harvard. And I'm talking about Harvard. I'm talking about institutions like Harvard, Boston, Massachusetts. They are in this institution, but their salary is grants. The grant, if you don't have any grant, there's no salary. If you don't have any grant, there's no salary. There's grants that pay but you get institutional support. So you have to continue to write grants all the time. And for you as research clubs, you should be looking at your members writing 3 to 5 small grants every year. We'll be talking about where it is that you can get information. And once you write grants, you build on it. That's how, and when you write grants, When you write for grants, what you do is submit a proposal that tells the introduction, what it is that you're supposed to do, and then the method, expected outcome, budgets. That's basically what they'll be expecting. And if you gradually build on it, even if you get a reject on this proposal, you tweak it and then you go on to the next. Remember when I was talking about faithfulness? She had tried 2 years earlier. And when she failed, she retweaked and resubmitted. And next time, I'm sure when she's going to write a grant now, she got a £4,000 grant. When she's going to write for a £10,000 grant, she's going to use the evidence of what she has generated now to tweak and make it better and ask for a bigger grant. Okay, so that's how you start to build a portfolio in a particular line by tweaking and growing whatever is the initial proposal. Of course, one of your strengths is for you to partner with faculty members. If you see at least the first two that I shared with you, there was clarity about the names of faculty members that they were working with to be able to get their grant. So where do you find grants? There are grants everywhere. And I think one of the things we'll do, could you please share the link with them as to where they can join the manuscript writing up? There are links everywhere. Look, there are grants, there are grants. I was in a meeting with a resident some time ago, and we were talking about. Said, look, there's grants. Yeah, you will get tired of choosing. There's grant. There are grants. I just cannot stop telling you that grants. So in the chat box, Dr. Lawal will share with you a link to our manuscript up, research up, where we continuously share grants and opportunities. So that's the manuscript research up. If you're an undergraduate student, some undergraduate medical school do research for undergraduate students. In my own school, we do research in both medical and dental spheres. I don't know about all the schools. When you do those grants, every institution, every public school in Nigeria has access to TED Fund grant. There are two arms to the TED Fund grant. There's the IBR, which is the institutional grant. That institutional grant is supposed to support grants by early career researchers in that institution. So, but there will be a supervisor which is a permanent staff. So if you're working on a grant as an undergraduate student, this is something that you must work with your supervisor, because there's grant opportunities in the university, and ask them, there's grant opportunity in this university, there's the IBR grant. Can we apply for this IBR grant for the project I'm going to do? Ideally, your supervisors should have a big project, and you as students are just doing small elements of it. So there's a big project that has about 5 research questions, and you might just be answering one of the research questions. My last research student, that was what he did. He just answered one of the many research, and we're already building forward and going to conclude that track. And that will be the second of 3 tracks in that big project. Okay. So that's the way also you can get grants, because that grant might also be funded by the supervisors. There are every single state ministry of health in Nigeria has a research unit. And many times they might have grants for multiple opportunities. It's just for institutions to latch on with them so that you have access to those grants that you can also use. There are grants that are being called by many opportunities, like the Nigerian Academy of Sciences. They could have access to grants. Like my own university, I'm working in it's called College Academic and Development Committee. We're going to raise grants from alumnus to make it available to staff and students. There are local NGOs. I just left a meeting from there to here, where it's a local NGO sourcing for grants that they have been awarding for the past 2 years. So about 40 organizations. This year that increasing it to 50. Small grants of $100,000, $100, $250, $120 for people to do projects in their community. And they've been talking about the transformation this money makes, because you're not touching your money pocket, you're just implementing your grant. So ideally, every university should have a grant office. I don't know about your university, but every research should have. As students, go and ask your research office, what are the opportunities for grants there are for undergraduate students? Okay, So there are grants. There are grants actually. There are grants. It's just for you to know how to get them. So when you get the call, please know I find it um, um challenging to teach you how to write a grant because many grants will tell you everything they want. They don't leave it to you to go and think of how to write the grant. They will tell you precisely what they want. And you know what? They'll tell you how they're going to score and grade it. So they'll tell you it's only those that are get 60% and above. For this section, this is the maximum mark. For this section, they will tell you. Every grant will tell you what they want and how they want you to write the grant. I can tell you I've read a lot of grants, and one of the places where you have problems in Nigeria is they just don't follow the call grant, and you wonder why. So once you get a call and you feel that you want to apply for the grant, first of all, check, are you eligible as undergrads to be able to write this grant? They talk about the budget limit. You wonder, can you absorb it? That's what we call it in the world, in the in our system. They'll ask, when you say can you absorb the grant, that means can you finish this grant? I'm going to tell you why this matters. I remember I run a project where we give grants to for people to do work. Initially, we started with 250,000. I had a problem. They wouldn't even report back. They never reported back the grant. I mean, that delayed me for about 2 years to even round up my grant. Not that they eventually reported. I ended up finding a way with the finance people to get out of it because they don't report. So I had to cut back the grant, make him 200,000 naira. You know what? I was shocked because I felt it wasn't going to be enough. And there was the first person that finished our work, finished our publication, and she only spent 20,000 out of 100,000. That's called not being able to absorb your grant. You give somebody 100,000, you can only. So why did you make a budget of 100,000 when all you can do and spend is 20,000? That kind of problem also creates problem from the grantors because they've expanded their budget. They just want result. Now you're having extra money that you're going to force them to absorb back. And then for them also, it will be as if they can't absorb the budget. So you make a budget for what you can spend. You don't write a budget of 5,000 because the grant says 5,000. At the end of the day, you can't spend 5,000. If you see Fate's budget, the grants, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical, the Royal College, the grant has a maximum budget of 5,000, but she did not budget 5,000 pounds. She budgeted for 4,000 pounds because that's what she can absorb. So the fact that there's a budget limit doesn't mean you write it. But at the same time, I remember it's a senior person who wrote a grant. I took it over for her and wrote it the next year. The maximum is 50,000. And then she wrote a grant of $5,000. I said, nobody's going to look at it. If the maximum is 50,000, they will expect you to write something around 35,000, 36, 40, 50. So I give a call of $50,000, and then you write a budget of 5,000. Nobody's going to look at it because that's not the kind of proposal. So there is an intermediary between around budgeting, which is very critical, and it does inform that decision about taking your proposals. Duration matters if you're in school, if you're an undergraduate student. Nobody's expecting you to do a project of 2 years, maximum 12 months. Something you can do 3 to 6 months is perfect. And check if they require you to have a faculty PR to do that work. But if you have it, it's a strength. It's a strength because there is like a commitment that even if you leave the school, that project will be able to continue. So it's a strength to always have a PR. As club leaders, what does it mean for you to manage small grants? Like we said, the small grants you go for. But one of the things you can do well is to have your members have access to the opportunities. Go harvest it. Go look around where these people announces grants and make it available to your members. For example, I do know the Peaches School in Ife have access to the manuscript of research grant. So when they say research grants, of course, we send all kinds of grants, including postgraduate opportunities and lots of others and job opportunities. So when they say a grant that suits their own students, because I'm on their platform, they would repost that grant to their own students, So those are the kind of things you can do. You can look for those grant opportunities and make it accessible to them. Of course, it also means I'll talk about what it means to train your students, how you can make it work, and your members to have grant opportunities. One of the most challenging things in grant writing is budgeting. They are experts, there are elements. That's the difference between schools in Nigeria and schools in resource-rich countries. You see, in resource-rich countries, grants is a major thing. So the Central Office of Research helps them to write critical things. They don't write their mind for them, but they will help you do your grants. They might ask you things about your institution. They already do those kind of work. They're experts that will do it. They will write about M&E. They're experts that will do it. So your medical and dental students may not know about budgets. I was in a meeting about 2-3 days ago where they were writing the strategic plan, Oracle strategic plan. When they started it, I was in the group. I didn't join because I knew that if I do it, I would take over from the group. They don't know how to write a strategic plan. This is an area of expertise. People go for courses and learn how to write a strategic plan. People go for courses and learn how to do an M&E. They get certificates in M&E. People go and learn in that M&E. They know how to do budgeting. Even me, I do consultancy on strategic plan. I need to get an independent consultant to do the budget because it is a specialized area. So people fail in writing their grants in the area of budgets a lot. You can't write your budget and be rounding it up. So you have a 5,000 naira budget. You say travel 1,000, booked 2,000. Nobody writes that because you have to write it in a way that there's a justification for that spending. When you do that, they know that you did not think critically about it. So you're going to have problems with budget expenditure. You're either under budgeting or over budgeting. So this is an area where you can provide support if that is the way you want to go, where you have people amongst you develop experts around budgeting, including taking little courses and then supporting your peers. Or you can set up grant tracking mechanism where your colleagues that have grants through your support, you then follow them up. How are you doing? Like doing an MIU so that they can ensure that they end up submitting their reports and thereby giving opportunities for others because it becomes a name. Once they know your institution do well in reporting on grants, they will give you out of trust. The day somebody messes up the name of your university, they will never give it. That's what happens. The backhouse things that happen in the grants world that you don't know. You see, once there's a black name, they tell themselves and they won't touch you, no matter how good your grants. The first person they give, the second person, they will chop the money, they don't report back. 2 years' time, they're still asking you. There's a girl in Kano that I work with. They've written over 2 years for her to report a grant. I'm just telling her, you don't know the implication of this thing. Just simple thing that you don't. May blacklist Kano forever on that list. You just be saying that your institution will be writing there and they will not give you. That is it. They will just be, but in their world, they will do that. Okay. So, and then you can also organize grant review sessions. What does this mean? You remember that you do journal club. Okay. So when you do journal club, what do? You bring an article, you review, and then you say the strength and the weaknesses. That way, you gradually learn how to write a manuscript. It's the same thing with the grant review. You will bring people's grants that they have applied for successfully, and then you critique it. Somebody presents it, and then you read it. You ask questions. You look at the weaknesses and the strengths. That is what it means organizing grant review. So if you're doing a research club, and you might do manuscript journal review for 3 weeks, one of the weeks you can do a grant review so that people can start to see and learn and ask questions about how they write grants and they get it. So one of the things, of course, that are mistakes, there are always mistakes that are common mistakes, is missing the signatures that matters. If they say you must ask for your signature of your dean, if they say you must get your recommendation letters, once you must approach a grant because it is competitive. Did you hear me? If you hear me repeat what I said, it is competitive. Say it again. It is competitive. Destiny, I hope you're repeating what I'm saying. And Abib, it is competitive. So you can't be behaving as if they're doing you a favor. Nobody's doing you a favor. So everything they say you must do, just do. Because what happens is that once these people, they know that the grant they have is for 50 people, 2,000 application comes. The first thing they will do is screen who met the requirements. If you didn't meet the requirement, there's no sympathy. They just stop it. You know, you're not there to defend. They say your words should be 200. You wrote 201. They will just drop it. They say submit five documents. You submitted two. They will drop it. There's no time for those sympathy because it's competitive. They're looking for excuses to drop. Because out of this 2,000 that wrote, 1,000 will be beautiful, but they only have 50. So every excuse they have, they will drop it. Okay. And then submitting last minute. This is the one headache I have seen when I review Africans' proposals. Not Africans, it's Nigerian. Kenya, South Africa, their proposals is almost perfect. I remember on AMREF when I'm reading, I just wonder which one are they going to take? It's almost perfect. But when you see the Nigerian one, you know. Straight. I'm telling you, it's so distinguishedly obvious. And what is it? They are submitting last minute and it is wishy-washy. Can you submit something last minute? And people, you know what people do? They will not like this London's this one that Faithfulness won. Is there every year? Is every year. So you see people already preparing for next year grants this year. Because the call is every year. So this year they're already preparing for next year. So that person and you that they say you're closing it tomorrow and then you start to write it today, you want to compare. That person that prepared for a year, he would have given the dean to read, he would have given other people that are doing that same grant in the past to read. He would have given 5, 6 people, 7, 8, 9, 10 people to read. They would have corrected the structure, corrected the English, corrected the grammar, corrected the tense, and then he submits a perfect grant. And you submitting last minute, they tell you closing date of this grant is today. Then you say, let me try. It's Nigerians that think like that. Or the reporting format, they say A must come before B, you say A, everything are the same. If B becomes A, not before say make everything the inside, then you say, who is going to answer your grant? So take note of every instruction. I have seen, I'm not joking, I've been in high places where they start to write grants before reading instruction. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You haven't read the grants. You haven't read the instruction. You are writing the grants. Of course, it's not going to work now. No, there's no devil is chasing me in that one. It will not work. It will not work. In fact, I remember there was a retreat we did at OAU and they were writing the grants. It was midway that we started reading. And I was saying, how can you be writing grant midway? Of course, we didn't get the grant because you didn't follow instruction. You spend a lot of time reading and understanding the reporting requirements before you start writing. So what are the things you can do at your research club? Once again, you can create and share active grants opportunities and invite faculty members who have received grants to come and speak to grant writing. I'm sure that's something you can easily organize. Your meeting happens every month or every, one of those meetings, you can get faculty members to come and speak. And then you yourself can organize, let us as Research Club apply for this grants. And then you hold the write-a-thon, which means teams should come and write, teams come and write. Another thing you can do is even you can organize grants for your students. For example, you go and meet alumnus of your school and say, please donate 50,000 Naira grant in the name of Morenike Folayan, grant for pediatric dental research. And then you ask your students to bid for it, to write proposals for it, and you review it, and the best will get the grant. Please know that if they don't meet up, you don't need to give the grant. There's a grant body I sponsor, I give them money for grants. I saw that the last application, one of the 2 grants, they didn't give any award because nobody met the quality of standard. Or your colleagues can write grants and then you can help them review the grants that they have written by meeting faculties, Invite them. This grant is good. You do this. This grant is good. Let's write it. And once they have written it ahead of time, you give it to your seniors who do well in grant writing. They don't have to be in your institution. You can reach out to colleagues outside your institution in Nigeria. You can reach out to people in Africa. You can reach out to people outside the world, outside. We have a global village, and ask them to support you with the process. Or you can submit at least two. And once you've written, like the ones that won the write-a-thon or those that are top, you can then submit as a club supported application to wherever they are. If there's a reject, please know that reject is normal. Though. There's nothing abnormal about reject. You wrote one grant in your life, they now reject the first grant you wrote, and then you say you never write grants. Now lie. Now lie. There's some people that write grants, 4 grants, 5 times. In fact, if one of these days you're in the work we do, Juliet will write. Juliet is known as the queen of grants now in our institution. Well, she wrote over 40 grants before she got her first one. But she's not known as the queen of grants. Anything she touches, she knows it. So she's always getting grants, big grants, small grants, everything. She's called the queen of grants. So reject is a normal thing, a normal food. Okay. And if you get a reject, you revise and resubmit somewhere else. Okay. So on a final note, I think that one or two things I want to say also on the final note, I just want to move this. Grant is open to everybody, but you would only get a grant when you start the first time. You don't get a grant by dreaming about it. But having said that, one of the key things I also want to leave behind is that a grant is a must. You see, when your institution is saying they don't have money, that institution is a joke. Is a joke. There is no university in the resource rich industry that depends on their government for money. It doesn't exist. It's only in places like Nigeria that you find them. They exist by the grants that their staff gets. Because that grant, out of that grant, a little money goes to the institution. Like my own institution is IFE. Any grant that comes from staff into the university, 10% goes to the university. It's the same thing with NIMA. In Harvard, I think it's 40% in Harvard, it's 40% in Boston, it's 40% in John Hopkins. There are percentages that go into the university. It is grants that make a university survive. It's not government subvention. It's not government subvention. So when you have joker universities like my own, and you're waiting for government subvention, you sit down, you're not building the capacity of the staff to write grants. You're not building the capacity of the students to write grants. You're not building the capacity of even your administrative staff to write grants so that you can get the 10% that will run university. That institution is joke because you know what? Money is never enough. Money is never enough. As they have increased the salary of lecturers today, in another 1 year, they will start fighting again. But what makes you happy is not the money, because grants will give you extra money. That is okay. But the fact that you are changing the world by the things you are doing, that's the grant that they will support you. It's not that because you just your proposal, and that's the proposal they will support. Apologies for my words. That's the proposal they will support. That proposal that is showing innovation. That proposal that is showing creativity. That proposal that is showing that we are changing the world small by small. We're changing the world small by small through the knowledge you are generating, through the efforts you are impacting. That's the proposal they will support. And it is that thing that makes you happy. For example, somebody died this week, I think it's this week, Professor Venter. Venter was the first person that laid the genomes, everything, human genome. He mapped the human genome. He was the first person. Everything has built on that. Even the DNA, mRNA virus that we have today has built on that. Is foundational knowledge. Venter would die a happy man, not because he has money and is going around, riding jets, but because he has impacted humanity forever. And you know what? There's so many people doing that. Everybody that is winning Nobel Prizes, that the people that are changing and impacting life. It's not only Nobel Prizes, there's so many prizes. You also and members of your research class should be able to win prizes when you're doing things impacting the world. But even if they are not giving you prizes, you are just happy inside you that you are making and contributing to the goodness of the world. This is what gives you internal satisfaction. And in doing that, you're also making money available for your institution to grow. I look at people when they write grants and they get angry when they give their institution money. Where are they support? It's free money, oh. It's free money. Nobody's taxing you. Then you'll be upset to give the money to your institution. You must budget with happiness and joy when you're budgeting 10% to your institution. Why have I gone the whole way to tell the story? It's so that you also, as research clubs, when you're supporting this grant writing process, ask them to budget money in that their grants to support the research club. Now, free money now, nobody's taxing them. Nobody's coming to their house to collect the money. They are going to give account for the money. If in the grants they have put 5% for research club, when they are reporting their grant, they will report that they are giving you the 5% now. Okay, so this is also a means of you guys making your money, not just supporting, but through the grants that you win through members, you can enhance the cost of the research club so that you can also give back. Please, so this money is not for you to be going to buy a bus for your association. It's for you to reinvest or money for you as a research club leaders. That's not what we are talking about here. The money goes back into your system. For example, it can go back so that you also have money that you can use to give grants, to give awards for your students, 50,000 award, 25,000, 100,000 grants. You can also do that by this money that you're collecting for your colleagues. On that note, I want to say thank you for listening, and I hand it over to Kudus to handle questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. It has been an educating session. I'm sure we are all motivated to start our grant application. Just to add one or 2 points to what Prof have mentioned, I put on the chat board that one of our mentee on the student manuscript writing of one of the cohort one also won a RSCMH award. And interestingly, just as Prof has mentioned, he had 2 grant applications that he did working with me that was rejected. But I told him that we'll always get a home for the application, and eventually got one, and it's currently working on it. So rejection is part of the business, part of the game. You learn from each rejected application and you build on it to make it better. Let me take questions. Maybe I'll also make comments again later, but let's take questions. Any questions or comments? Clarification. Use your and the electronic hand. No.
All right, Kudus, we don't seem to have any question. Do you? Okay,
Oh,
we have one.
there.
Yes, we have
Okay.
one. Amir, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
All right. Thank you very much. Good evening, man. Good evening, man. Please, am I audible?
Good evening.
You
Yes,
have, please
we
go
can
ahead.
hear you.
All right. So my question is regarding yes, the grant application, like how you have to account for like everything you spend. Particularly, I believe most of the evidence, like most of this grant require, like for your spending, is mostly received or maybe purchases you make and the likes. But one thing about yes, particularly us here in Nigeria, like we don't have receipts for like most of the sellings we do. Like if you want to purchase something, I don't know, it's only few stores, or I don't know about maybe there in the south, but here in the north, like you hardly get receipt. So like how can you gain evidence like to support like all the spendings you make for
Amir, I'm
when,
going
like
to answer you.
back to the
Yes, I hear
organization like
you.
this?
Yes, excellent question, and thanks for asking that. 2 things. I'm sure you know that people in the north also get grants and they also report. And not only do they get grants, they're always getting it over and over. How do they report? So that's the kind of mentality you bring. I mean, there are people there that get grants. So how are they reporting? Remember in one of my presentations, as I said, there are two things. All those people, when you're doing research club meeting, those people that have gotten grants, bring them. And what they usually do is that two things. If you know that you have problems with people with receipts, print receipts so that they sign, give it to them. I mean, you print booklets and give it to them so that they can issue you receipts. The second is that the only thing with this one is that there's a maximum limit. You certificate of honor. You write a certificate of honor for them to sign. So in that paper, you would have printed it. You have your project name, your institutional name, and you say, "Hi, Morenike Upon, collected 5 naira from Kudus Lawal for the purchase of 1 sachet of pure water." And then you sign. That's how you do it. So I hope it makes sense. Others in the north, in Kano, they are in Sokoto, they are getting grants and they're all giving accounts. So it's possible. It's possible. But the certificate of honor is a way to go. Like I said, I know very early in my own early days, you print, if you know, you print receipts and give it to them so that they issue you receipts, and sign properly. Those things matter. Yeah. I hope I answered your question, Amir.
Yeah, yes, I did. Thank you very much.
You're very much welcome. Any other person? Okay, could just there seems to be no other question. Okay.
Dr. Tai,
Omiyale. No, there's somebody. Please unmute your mic, Omiyale.
please, you can unmute.
Anifa.
Okay. Good evening, Ma. Thank you very much for the session today. During the course of the presentation, on slide, okay, the slide doesn't have a number, but where you discussed funding strategy, the 80-20 rule for students. So I need you to explain again what you meant by 80% of our efforts for small grants and 20% of the efforts for international. Are we referring to how much effort we put into applying for these grants?
Effort translate to money, So what I'm saying, what you're saying is a budget, right? So your 80% efforts, you can write in a small grant, $5,000 grant, $2,000 grant, $1,000 grant. 80% of it can go for effort. But when you're writing for a $1 million project, it can only be, I know in Wellcome Trust, the maximum is 35%. EDCTP is also around 27% or something. There's a maximum. Effort means what you are doing. I am traveling, I am going to the field. Those are efforts. You can't spend 80% of your grant on field work in a $1 million grant. Your $1 million grant will show results. So you are, for example, like say I'm a dentist, I'm going to be putting fluoride in the mouth, I'm going to be doing feedings. 80% must do that. Not that I'm going to the field, I'm going to report my transport. No. I've seen this mix up a lot. You see people writing for TED Fund grants. TED Fund grants goes up to as high as 50 million. And you see people spending 35 million on transport. They're traveling. I'm going to go to 6 states. And then 35 billion is on air transport, accommodation, feeding, monitoring. Nobody's going to give you that grant now. Those are efforts. But if you have a 5,000 grant, you need to print your paper, you need to travel from one place to the other. That's effort. It makes meaning in a small grant. Does it make sense? Does it make sense?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Okay, well, okay. Yeah. If there's any other clarification, let me know. But effort this time, it must be measured. You're talking about budgets now. So you can say effort. I'm thinking about something. That's that. Effort is the things that you're doing. You're working around the effort to make the project work. Okay. For example, that like if you're doing an undergraduate. Okay, let me give faithfulness example. Faithfulness is looking at students' interest in bioethics as part of their course in undergraduate studies. So 80% of our work could be data collection, data analysis, traveling from one school to the other. Okay. So that is, what if I'm getting a $1 million grant? I can't spend $800,000 doing that data collection. All that I can spend is maybe 10 million out of $100 million. But I must get results. I must show how I have now integrated ethics training into medical students' project. And at the end of the day, their curriculum is better for it. And I'm showing that students, because of that curriculum, are now publishing, something like that. That's outcome. 80% of the money must support that outcome. So if part of that money is supporting APC, sickle processing fee payment, training the PhD students to go for, that is outputs. For that heavy grant, 80% can go into that. But small grants, it's about field work. Does it make sense, Omiyale?
Yes, ma, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're very much welcome. All right, over to you, Kudus, so that we can bring this to a close.
Okay,
Somebody else asking question. I can't see any other hand.
No.
All right, thanks for having me. Over to you, Kudus.
Okay, thank you very much, ma. Dr. Taigbe, do you want to add one or two words before we call it the otherwise? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much for this session. Thank you very much. Very insightful session.
Your voice is far from us.
I said just to thank you for the session. Thank you very much. Very insightful session.
Oh,
thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll meet again next week, Friday, for the next session in the module. Do have a lovely weekend. Don't forget to join the Manuscript Writing Early Career Research sessions that I'll be holding tomorrow morning. The link will be shared again over tonight. Thanks, everyone.
And could this maybe for their platform, you share the link to the research hub so that they can join and their colleagues can join also. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Have a good evening, everybody. Have a restful weekend. Bye.